Welcome to Hatman Strikes Back Daily Boxing News. So Conor Benn has had his suspension lifted once again. Just to give you a brief recap, he was originally suspended in April last year following 2 failed PED tests. That suspension was then lifted by the National Anti-Doping Panel, who UKAD and by extension the British board are subordinate to. And at the time, Conor Benn put out a statement claiming that he'd been exonerated and that he'd proven his innocence after all. But of course then, UKAD and the British board appealed the lifting of the suspension. And in May this year, they won the appeal. And Conor Benn's suspension was reinstated, which then brings us up to this week's decision, where once again, the National Anti-Doping Panel have lifted Conor Benn's suspension. In response to this, a UKAD spokesman issued the following statement. UKAD notes the professional boxer Mr. Conor Benn has made public comments today regarding the outcome of proceedings before the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel. UKAD can confirm that it received the decision of the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel this afternoon. The panel concluded that it was, quote, not comfortably satisfied, unquote, that UKAD had proved that Mr. Benn had committed an anti-doping rule violation for the use of clomiphene. The provisional suspension previously in place has been lifted and the charge against him has been consequently dismissed. UKAD will now carefully review the panel's decision in accordance with its appeal rights under the UK anti-doping rules. In accordance with Article 8.5.2 of the UK anti-doping rules, UKAD is unable to publicly disclose the decision of the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel at this time without Mr. Benn's consent. In accordance with Article 13.7.1 of the UK anti-doping rules, UKAD has 21 days from the date of today's decision to file an appeal. All other interested parties, as that term is defined within the rules, have a separate right of appeal. All right, so that's the statement from UKAD, and clearly they have not yet conceded that Conor Benn is innocent of any wrongdoing. They said they're going to carefully review the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel's decision. Nevertheless, Conor Benn put out this statement. As someone who is so passionate about boxing and an advocate for clean sport, I hope now I have been cleared, it can be understood why I have maintained my innocence so strongly throughout. As a man of God, I bear no ill will towards UKAD or the British Boxing Board of Control. We have a shared ambition of a clean sport, and I look forward to reconciling with the board and moving forward together. I would like to thank my fans that have stood by me. Your support has never and will never go unnoticed. And of course, my friends and family, all of whom have displayed an unwavering belief in me. Only with the strength of all this support have I made it through. I would also like to thank Matchroom and Everlast, as their steadfast support ensured that I could see the process through to a full conclusion. I have stayed disciplined and focused despite the challenges faced, which is a testament to my desire to be great. I'm relieved to finally close this chapter, and I'm excited to get back in the ring to realize my ultimate potential. Who wants it next? Okay, so let's just get down to brass tacks here. Conor Benn was found to have an illegal substance in his system on 2 separate occasions. This we know, but judging by the language used here by the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel, they appear to be approaching this case in a very different fashion to UKAD, because it appears that UKAD have placed the emphasis on Conor Benn to prove that he didn't take clomiphene deliberately, that it was somehow contamination or some other form of innocent accident. Whereas the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel are instead putting the emphasis on UKAD to prove that Conor Benn took the substance deliberately. Now, when I first read that, I thought, wow, that's a bit disturbing, because surely that leaves a massive gray area for drug cheats to exploit. You see, this is not like a criminal case, for example, where, let's say somebody's been charged with robbery, the prosecution is trying to prove that they did commit this robbery, and the defense is trying to prove that they didn't. In Conor Benn's case, he did have an illegal substance in his system. There's no question about that. It's about why he had the substance in his system. And if the Independent National Anti-Doping Panel are not going to put the emphasis on Conor Benn to prove that that substance ended up in his system by some innocent accidental means, and instead put the onus on UKAD to prove that Conor Benn did it deliberately, then surely this now gives a blueprint to drug cheats. You don't need to prove that you're innocent if you've got an illegal substance in your system. You just need to show that there's a certain amount of ambiguity there about what really happened. As long as you can show ambiguity, we'll find you not guilty. That's alarming. However, upon deeper reflection, we don't know the exact reasons for the independent National Anti-Doping Panel coming to this decision. I'm going to speculate here. Perhaps they decided that because the amount of clomiphene in Conor Benn's system was so small, the chances of him taking it deliberately are relatively slim. Therefore, we're not going to put the onus on Conor Benn to prove that it got in his system without his knowledge. We're going to put the onus on UKAD and by extension the British board to prove that he took it deliberately. Because again, this is such a small amount, it's basically negligible. And since UKAD haven't been able to prove that Conor Benn took it deliberately, we're going to dismiss the case. If Conor Benn had a lot of clomiphene in his system, then maybe we would have put the emphasis on him to prove that he didn't take it deliberately. Do you see what I'm saying? Again, this is speculation on my part. I don't know. I'm eager to hear from the British Boxing Board of Control, more from UKAD, and more from the independent National Anti-Doping Panel. Because as far as I'm concerned, as a member of the public, the situation remains extremely unclear. We haven't been given a satisfactory explanation for why Conor Benn had clomiphene in his system. That hasn't been cleared up, despite Conor Benn proclaiming his innocence again. But as I said from the early stages of this tragic comedy, this whole saga, for me at least, has been as much about bad advice and bad PR as it has about drug testing protocol. Because right at the very start, Conor Benn, along with fellow silver spoon rich kid Eddie Hearn, tried to bulldoze their way through the situation with no regards for any due process. When the fight with Eubank Jr. was stopped, dead in its tracks, they then tried to circumvent due process. The pair of them displayed incredible arrogance. Hardly surprising, though, considering they were both raised in privilege. And I've got nothing against being raised in privilege, by the way. I'm just saying that sometimes privileged kids can become spoiled. They're used to getting their own way, even when they're in the wrong. And when somebody finally stands up to them, they throw their toys out the pram. And that's exactly what Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn did. And they both, but particularly Conor Benn, then tried to drag the British Boxing Board of Control's name through the mud when the British board were just doing their job. And then Conor Benn comes out and claims that the board have got some vendetta against him because of the actions of his dad 30 years ago, which is absurd. The party in the wrong was Conor Benn and his promoter Eddie Hearn. If they just cooperated with due process right from the start, they would have saved themselves loads of time, loads of hassle, and loads of money, not to mention public backlash. If you fail a PED test, there's a way to go about dealing with things. The last thing you want to do is make a big song and dance of it and start trying to circumvent due process. If you face consequences for that from the British board, from UKAD, and from the public, it's of your own making. You created any beef that the British board and UKAD have with you. That's what Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn need to understand. Anyway, we shall see whether UKAD and the British board decide to appeal again or whether they just let it go finally, because I'm sure this is costing them quite a bit of money as well. You'll notice that Conor Benn used very reconciliatory language in his statement, in stark contrast to previous statements he's made. Perhaps he's hoping that a new approach will cause UKAD and the British board to drop the matter. We shall see. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you check out my Patreon content, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out. Are you surrounded by mindless bots in human form who adhere to the norm and blindly conform, who swallow all the mainstream BS and actually ridicule you for questioning things? Do you wish you had more free-thinking individuals in your life to network and converse with? Well, look no further. We're right here. Come and join the Brotherhood of Reason on Patreon. You'll gain access to my weekly topical content where we take deep dives on an endless variety of subjects, as well as my vast back catalogue of podcasts, videos, interviews, movie decodings, and my Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You'll also get to talk and network with myself and hundreds of other people in our members chat. You can enjoy all this via the Patreon app or on desktop and download all my podcasts in high quality MP3. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store, or simply visit patreon.com on a web browser. Then head on over to my page and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. All the links are in the description box below. And just a quick money-saving tip for Apple users. If you purchase your Patreon subscription on the desktop site or on Android, then you'll avoid the ridiculous 30% fee that Apple charges for purchases made on the iOS app. So if you're on iPhone or iPad, save yourself some money by buying your subscription on the actual Patreon website or on Android because it's a lot cheaper. Once you've made that initial purchase, you can then use the Patreon app on your iPhone or iPad thereafter to access and enjoy your content as normal.